Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us at our next Business Success webinar. Today, we have a very special presentation on how to estimate your payroll cost. Today's presentation is presented by Millie Gonzalez Scott with Scott Business Group. So she'll be helping you answer all those questions that you may have on payroll. So before we get started, just a couple housekeeping rules really briefly. Please include your contact information if you'd like to share it with all participants. If you have any questions, please put those in the chat as well. We'll be answering questions at the end. And you'll be receiving the recording of today's session if you'd like to rewatch it later on this afternoon. So be on the lookout for an email from us later today. And make sure to visit our website for the latest updates on events or any special programs that the Chamber has to offer. So please visit our website for more information. So with that, I'd like to introduce to you Millie Gonzalez Scott, who will be kicking off our presentation today. Millie, thank you so much for your time and helping us present this wonderful presentation for all of our members today.
It's my pleasure. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for taking your time out of your busy day to take this webinar. It is my pleasure to be here. I am the co-owner of the Scott Business Group, and we are a recruiting and staffing firm here in Phoenix, Arizona. I've been in the business of recruiting and staffing for over 20 years, and I have been involved in all facets of running the company. With that, I could tell you that I have the experience in doing payroll for all these years that I've been working in our company. We do not do third-party payroll. We handle it all internally. And so I'm qualified to present to you how to estimate your payroll cost. Next slide, please. So this is today's agenda, and pretty much, I have a very simple presentation, but it's what I call straight to the point. And for somebody who may not necessarily ever done payroll, they can pick up this presentation and learn what payroll costs are, what are all the components of payroll cost, and how you come up with your cost per employee at the end, so that per year, so that you can do your estimate to budget on a yearly basis, assuming that you do budgets for your company. Next slide, please. And I think I pretty much cover this. So you can go to the next one. Okay, so the payroll costs are basically the cost of the pay that you do for your employees. If they're hourly, is there hourly wages? If they're salary, is there salary wages? The base is that, plus any commission and bonuses that you may pay your employees. In addition to that, it includes vacation pay, sick pay, health and dental insurance, if you offer that. However, the health and dental, it's only the percentage that the employer pays, because most companies have a split of a minimum of 50% the employer's payment towards the employee's insurance. So you do not include the portion that belongs to the employee. So that I want to make sure that you understand that. And for those of you who might have been going for PPP loans, that was one of the stipulation when the PPP, which is obviously the payroll program loan that was available through the government, I think it's still around. One of the things that they ask you to do, it was all based on your payroll cost. And they clearly state that the health and dental benefits are only the portion that you pay, unless you pay 100%, but I don't know too many companies anymore that pay 100% benefits. The other pieces are the employer's taxes, which you as the employer would be responsible for. And that's like the Social Security, Medicare, which is typically known as FICA, federal unemployment taxes, which is FUTA, and the state unemployment taxes. Those are all the responsibility of the employers. The workers' compensation insurance, which is an insurance that is required in the state of Arizona, and most states have it now, but Texas, as an example, does not have workers' comp. And that is a key cost that could sometimes drive you bankrupt, depending on how well you manage your safety in your company, because the company does, the insurance companies look at it on the basis of how well you manage your safety and your what is considered to be EMOD, the experience modification that is used in many companies who you might be bidding for. Those of you in construction, as an example, APS is one, and SRP are companies that ask you, what is your EMOD? So I'm bringing it up, even though it's not part of your payroll cost, but it's something that is important that you monitor so that you can make sure you make a profit. And then, of course, we have overhead cost. The overheads are ongoing business expenses directly attributed to, that are not directly attributed to the products and services that you do, are the ones that you can include as your payroll, in your payroll cost. And that, you know, for purpose of budgeting, you can segregate that, because this is a good way to figure out whether you're making a profit or not. So in short, it basically, whatever overhead expenses you incur to support the business while not directly related to the specific product and service that you offer are the overhead expenses. And those can be a little tricky, but so I have the next slide, please. Some takeaway that basically refer to the cost of operating the business. Creating a product is not included, but there can be fixed and variable or hybrid of the two. As an example of that, if you are renting or you own a business, those are overheads that are included in your payroll cost. The utilities that you pay to run your business, all these kind of costs that could vary. And that's why sometimes, because obviously the utility is one that could be changing on a month-to-month basis. Other costs associated with your payroll, like the ADP, if you use ADP for processing your payroll, or QuickBooks, or whatever company you might use if you don't do an internal ones. And then if you do internally, you may also have the cost of the subscription to QuickBooks, if you use QuickBooks, checks that you buy, or the fee that you have to pay the bank if you're doing direct deposit and they allow you to do that. So it's important that you manage your overhead, because again, profits are going to be your profit, how profitable you are, I'm sorry, will indicate how well you manage your business expenses. Yeah. So next slide, please. And I think I pretty much covered that already, which is where we talk about the rent and property taxes, the property insurance, and administrative costs associated with the payroll, utility, insurance, And I talk about insurance there, I'm talking about general liability insurance, not workers' comp. That's totally separate. And of course, the cost of repairs and maintenance on your vehicle and any equipment you have to operate. Next slide. I've gone and basically given you step by step the arithmetic, if you will, associated with calculating your payroll costs. And we start off with what the wages would be for hourly employee. Obviously, for a salaried person, it's a salary, so the annual salary would be what it is. But for an hourly employee, you you take your pay rate and you multiply by the number of hours they work per week, and that is the gross paid to employee. But in addition to that, that should include any vacation pay or holiday or sick pay when you do it on a yearly basis. Typically, there's 2,080 hours a year, and that's computed by basically taking 52 weeks in a year, multiplied by the 40 hours per week, and that gives you the 2,080 hours that you have in the year. So the labor cost per week, which is that whatever your wages are multiplied by the 40 hours, and then if you in turn multiply it by 52, will give you the total per year. So let's see what else we have here. That's for hourly employee. Workers' comp, which I've already discussed a little earlier, that is basically you would get, if you're using QuickBooks and you're doing it on your own, you would have the opportunity to put in the codes that are associated with the people that work for you based on the work they do. As an example, somebody who works in a clerical position in the office, the code is different than somebody who's working, if you're producing, manufacturing a product, versus the person that's working inside the factory. Or if you're in the construction industry, it's different for somebody who is pouring concrete versus an electrician, etc. So for every type of job, there is a code. And then the EMOD, which is the experience modification rate, is based on the history that your company has as far as safety. Excuse me. The more accidents you have, the higher risk they consider you. So therefore, that number could change, and that's what I mean by that's how you can go out of business if you do not do a good job at safety. And that not only impacts your bottom line, but it also impacts your possibility of getting contracts with larger corporations who are very, very focused on safety. And I go back to the APS and the SRP and those who safety is number one, because it costs them money like anybody else. So for you to open more opportunity to yourself as a company, you got to make sure you keep that safety as a key element in your business. But that's not my job to talk about, but I just thought I'd give you those tips because I have the experience of having my own issues with AMOD. And we talked about overhead, which is, as I said earlier, the total cost of your overhead per year is the total cost of your rental, mortgage, property taxes, insurance, property insurance, utilities, equipment, supplies, general liability insurance, etc. And you total all of those, and that would be your total overheads. Next slide, please. Actually, she's 2 slides behind. Yeah, the next one. Okay, you're good. So to calculate your total annual cost, you take the wages paid to the employees per year. And then, of course, you calculate the employer tax contributions, which basically is your federal unemployment. And that is dictated by the government, and currently is 6% of the gross wages. So I given you the formulas with the gross wages time 0.06, that will give you the federal unemployment. Medicare is 1.45% at this time, and you do the same. You take the gross wages and multiply it by that 0.145. Social Security is 6.2%, and you do the same again. Now, for the state of Arizona, that is different for each company, and that's based on your company history. And it's, again, one of those that is based on the number of employees you have operating and have not laid off. If you laid off any employee because you have no need for them, then there you would be penalized in the sense that the more employees you lay off, the higher the percentage that the unemployment is going to be for your company. They have a standard that they use. I don't have a formula here, but it's, something you could always inquire if you need to know. But every year, at least once a year, you will get what your rate is. If there's a change in the law or some process or policy that changes in the state that impacts you, then you would get the information. Also, the state of Arizona, and I'm very familiar with this, sends you a statement of what you have paid for each employee, and the employees that you have laid off and used some of the credits, they also start discounting how much you have sort of in your savings of account, if you will, if you want to call it that, the monies that they keep for unemployment. So that's when you hear that they're running out of funds, they mean they're running out of the money that was there. And people who collect unemployment, they only have about so much per year. So next slide, please. And again, we talk about the total year cost of insurance, and that you would get a bill from your workers' comp insurance company. And your overhead, as we said earlier, you can total them up, and and that would give you basically the total cost for each category that you need to add for your payroll cost when you're estimating. Next slide, please. So I've included a payroll summary report, which is one that I got out of QuickBooks because that's what we use. But however, if you use ADP or any of those payroll processing company, they typically send a report that gives you the cost associated with the payroll, including their fees. I take it. But I just wanted to illustrate how gross pay, depending on the title of the people who are working for you, if they're salaried, you would have the salary person. Consultant in this case is an IT person, and office administrator. So those numbers are pretty much, those titles I put there because I wanted to illustrate that the workers' comp code for each one of those are different depending on the function. So you would have titles in your company. Somebody's a carpenter, or if they are a sheetrock person, depending on who you have working in a case of construction I'm referring to here. And then below you have the calculations with the federal unemployment for those specific area, federal unemployment, Medicare, Social Security, Arizona work unemployment and workers' comp. And so those are all the employer costs. And of course, you can see the total contribution on taxes that you would have to pay on your employees, so you could have it separated by category. And next. So to sum it up, basically the total annual cost per employee are really basically the total cost of the wages that you pay per year for all your employees, the employer tax contribution for all your employees, workers' compensation, and your total overhead for the year. So you take the total of all of those and you divide them by the total number of employees that you have, and that would give you the cost per employee. And that pretty much covers estimating your cost of payroll. I have questions. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to. The next slide says questions. I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have. And also, I have my contact information in this presentation, and that's on the next slide. And if you have any question, I can answer now, or if you find yourself working, trying to estimate your payroll and you come across an issue that you're not clear and you need help, I'll be more than happy to respond to you. You can call me or you can email me, whatever works best. And I will do my best to respond to you. If it gets to be an issue where it's more accounting related, I might defer that to your accountant if you're using one, or I may even ask my accountant so that I can be clear myself and learn on that. But that's basically all that I have. If there are any questions, I'm here for you. It's not very complicated, so I just wanted to make sure that you get the basic and the simple way to figure it out.
Thank you so much, Millie. We do have a couple comments in the chat. One from Karen. This is very interesting. She personally was not aware how much went into payroll costing. This is great information for businesses of all sizes, but I can see how small business owners could benefit immensely from this information. So great presentation. Thank you, she says.
And then thank you. Thank you, Karen.
And then we have a question from Dino. So what is the base rate for unemployment if you have a low risk or new company that is mainly work in office or construction, etc., and or workers' comp?
Okay. So when you excuse me, your question for the unemployment, if you are basically a new company that never had laid off anybody, then you would be paying based on your industry the unemployment rate that would be dictated by the government in terms of, I'm talking about state. The unemployment for the federal, that is dictated by the federal government. So that is a fixed rate. And I believe I gave you the, let me go back to one of these slides. If you look at the example where I'm summarizing the payroll costs, federal unemployment, which I believe it's about 6%. I go back to the slide. I don't know the percentages by heart, but the federal unemployment is 6% of the gross wages. Whatever you pay your people, it is what it is. You can it's dictated. It's a federal percentage. Has nothing to do with the industry related, but the state is different. So the state looks at at what you do, basically what is the core of your business. And I don't know, I assume that they have a pattern that they follow. Statistics of who lays off tend to have more seasonal laid off, so your percentage is going to be based on all that. So for the state, you have to go in and basically ask, and that's easy. Go online, and if you don't find it, you can address it to them. But as a company that just started, when you register, you should have received a percentage that's applicable to you. One of the things the state does is that they give you the opportunity to pay it quarterly, or they make a rough calculation of what it would be for a year, and you can pay it ahead of time. Well, you know what? I'm not paying what I don't have. So I personally pay it as I go, but they do give you the incentive by lowering your percentage for anybody who pays it ahead of time. So I don't know if that answers your question or not. And I think Dino has something on workers' comp. I'm trying to read. It's very small on the screen. So was there something on the workers' comp that you have? Low risk company that is mainly work in the office of construction. I know workers' comp. So the workers' comp for people who work in the office is very low. The rate, quite honestly, and those rates, by the way, the codes and the rates are not something that the insurance company set up. Is actually set up by the government. There is gosh, I can't think of the name, because quite honestly, I don't handle the workers' comp for my company. My husband does that. And but the codes that dictated are dictated outside of the insurance company, so they can't just randomly decide that the code for a clerical person is going to be 0.1% of their wages. No. Typically, that comes from some federal agency, and they get updated based again on statistic that they accumulate, and they figure out how many accidents can you have in the office, paper cut or falls or whatever the case may be in an office. I know most people don't think that you can have accidents in an office. Oh, I'm not in construction, so I wouldn't have no accident. Well, you'd be surprised the things that people that are working in offices sometimes do that create accidents. I mean, I can tell you that one of the typical examples that I used to hear all the time from the safety people is that, well, somebody was trying to pull the shade up or down by their window in the office, and that shade fell up on them and cut them, and they got hurt. Freaky things happen, and sometimes accidents are accidents, and you can do things to prevent them, but 100% is never there. So they do the code based on the statistics of how many accidents on a year office are experiencing, etc. And then the EMOD, which is the experience modification rate, is based on your history. And when you first start, that tends to be low. And I say low in the sense that it's not, it becomes very, very costly if you had too many accidents, and they keep computing how much those accidents are costing. And the cost of the accidents are basically based on the level of the injury. If the person is able to continue working, if they got to be put on light duty, or if they have to go for therapy, because let's say they lifted a box at the office and they hurt their back. So then all of a sudden they got to go to be checked, and then they might have to go get physical therapy. And all those costs are added up, and the insurance company are looking how much are you costing them. And based on the level of cost and the high risk of accidents, that's how your EMODs are computed. And your rate is given to you once a year. And then once you're in a certain level of history, it takes a long time, 5 years, for you to start seeing a creep down. So I emphasize safety because it is so important, not only that you keep your employees healthy, but also it keeps your company healthy in terms of the bottom line of profit. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but you would have to talk to whoever is handling your workers' comp. And there's also, I don't know right now if the Hispanic Chamber is offering at this time any webinars on safety and understanding workers' comp. There's lots of training or webinars that are put out there for you to understand what goes into workers' comp and how to control your workers' comp cost and so on and so forth. So a tip to the Hispanic Chamber that this might be a good webinar to have. And a lot of people think, I am not in the construction industry, so I really don't care. Well, you know what? You should care, because it's not just construction. Accidents can happen in any place. And at the end of the day, if it's determined that it's something that you should have prevented in your company, you're going to be penalized for it. So that's my 2 cents. Okay. Anything else? Anybody else?
Thank you, Millie. Just some comments from Izzy Gonzalez. Hi, Millie. Great information. Great to see you.
Yeah. Thank you, Izzy. He's been around for a while, so he'd be a good person too. Izzy has always been a great resource. So I'll just put it out there. I just gave you some work, Izzy.
Yes, absolutely. He can provide you more information and connect you if you have any questions. He says, thanks for making me feel older. Millie, while we wait for any other questions that may come up, any last minute words or thoughts that you wanted to share, or what other information can you share now that, we're kind of transitioning from maybe work from home to maybe going back to the office, or any other last minute thoughts that you may have?
Yes, that's a very good point you brought up as far as the virtual offices, working from home. One of the things I could say is that you have to be very careful as a company owner, because the insurance company, the workers' comp, wants to know who's working remotely and who's working out of the office. And I'm not sure exactly the impact of that. And I say that because, I did business with SRP and in the IT arena, where lots of folks are used to working remotely. And they, back in the days before the pandemic, they went through a period where they were like, no, we don't want people working remotely. It's too much of a high risk. And they meant high risk of workers' comp insurance. I was told by the lady who used to manage the contract I was with. And I didn't understand it. I'm like, what are you talking about? High risk? You're working at home. I mean, what could that be? I don't really know all the details of that, but I can tell you that it's important that you find out if there is a difference in your costs for insurance purposes. I'm not referring to other costs that are associated with working remotely that you might have to give allowances for employees, utilities, and so on, because you're no longer paying for them to come to the office, and maybe you're no longer going to have a big office, and you may just have an office that is half virtual, if you will, where you have conference rooms where people can come and meet once a week or whatever, but most of the time they work from home. So there is cost for the employee in terms of running the office from home. That means, with that being said, there's utility bills that if unless they can deduct it from their taxes, which I'm not sure how that works, they may be asking the employer to provide a monthly, you know, amount allowance for the paying the internet connections, high speed, and for utilities, the electricity, water, whatever usage you have um, at home that is related to the work you do for the company. So uh, that is a real important thing to look at when you're looking at your costs as far as your overhead. So it may not necessarily be, as big of a rent or that you might have had, because now you moved to a smaller office and people are working from home. So, and the employees are expecting you to give an allowance to help pay for the bill, because when they're home all day, your utilities are going to be higher all around as an employee, so they may want to be compensated for it, because at the end of the day, they're really covering your company expenses are less because they're working from home and they're inquiring a higher expense. So that's something that you need to look into. And as I said, not and the other piece, so insurance wise, general liability insurance again is one that's going to want to know how many people do you have working remotely, they're working from home. um, the insurance companies are asking a lot more questions than, and I say that because I just had to renew all my insurances, and I'm like, I had never had to answer all these questions. It's unbelievable. And then not just the workers' comp, but the general liability. And my broker was like, yeah, I couldn't believe it myself. I looked at this and it was like, oh Lord, what is going on? So it's important that you take a look at what you're paying for, if it's going to be beneficial for you to have the people working remotely, or you're much better off having an office. Obviously, we're not going to be in pandemic mode. Hopefully, not for long. We should be getting rid of this so we can start to some sense of normality. And so those are the type of issues that you need to address in terms of assessing what's the best way for you, because at the end of the day, you want to make sure that your bottom line is on the positive, not on the red. And if it's going to cost you more money to have somebody work from home, then I say, find a safe way for them to work at the office or wherever it is they're working. Um, you know, and it's individual choices of company depending on what they do and how they're run. And so that would be my 2 cents of advice there. And key, as I said, because obviously as a small business, and not that the large business don't look at everything, they have more people looking than you have. So you as a small business owner, you have to have um, the dedication to looking at what your costs are. I chose to do my own payroll because I, as a business owner and being in the staffing industry, there are some things that make it a little bit harder for to have flexibility in terms of how you process payroll. And for me, it would cost me a lot more if I took it outside. And the other piece to that is I have more control. I guess I'm a control freak. So I like to look at the numbers. I'm an engineer and I have to look at the numbers, okay? So I'm always looking at my profit loss statement. I'm always looking to see where the changes in comparing one every month and quarter. What was it last year or 2 years ago? Where are we today? And so on and so forth. So that I can have a good grip on where to cut cost and where we are bottom line, what I can afford and what we can afford. And so my biggest advice to any business owner is stay close to your numbers. Take a look at your numbers. Don't ever lose sight of what it is that you need to be, and obviously quality services, if it's a service that you do, or quality product, keeps customers coming back. I think I've said enough. But if you have any questions, again, I'd be happy to answer. And like she just have the contact information there. She's going to send the email with the presentation. You can review it. And you may have other questions that may come up as you review it. And again, I go back to feel free to contact me. I'd be glad to answer your questions. And, as I said, I might be able to even give you contacts of folks that are in the community that are resources that can tell you how to best approach the workers' comp being one of the biggest costs, and insurance. And like I said, Easy has been around, and Easy has a lot of contacts on that. And I believe also the Hispanic Chamber and the minority business arm of the Hispanic Chambers is also very helpful. They have good people, bilingual people that have a lot of expertise, and most importantly, they know people that know the answer if they don't know the answer. So I always encourage folks to use your resources. Nobody knows everything. And when you don't know, ask and find out and educate yourself, because in the world of a small business, you cannot always afford to be hiring somebody to do things for you. So you have to learn and wear all the hats. I
Wonderful.
talk too much, don't I?
No, lots of great information, Millie. Like you mentioned, we'll share your contact information in the recording today, later on this afternoon for everyone. So thank you again. I don't see any other questions here. But if anything comes up, they'll make sure to contact you for more. I appreciate your time with us this morning. We'll go ahead and cut it a little short today, but thank you so much, and hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Please visit our website for more upcoming webinars, or if you'd like to receive more information from us. Like Millie mentioned, we do provide a lot of good connections or good referrals to other organizations that could help you out with this type of information, as well as Millie's company that could help as well. So thank you again, and hope everyone has a great day.
It's been my pleasure, and thank you for the opportunity to share this with our small business community. And those of you who've known me for a long time know that I am one of those who are really, my passion has always been to work with the small business as far as my contribution to society is to help those that I can help. So I'm here for you. Thank you. And like she said, I hope you have a wonderful day and the rest of your week goes well. I'm here and do not hesitate. I mean it when I say that. Okay? Thank you. It's been my pleasure. Have a wonderful day.